Welcome to Daredevil in the Details, a show that explores and delves on the philosophy and themes of Disney's Daredevil Born Again, a digression collection brought to you by AMTTM Madness and the ZeroIndent Patreon subscribers. I'm author DC McNeil, and this week, as we approach the conclusion, this episode scrambles to put together a coherent narrative. I'm joined as always by Patrick from AMTTM Madness, a wealthy tech billionaire with an embezzlement problem.
Allegedly.
And of course, we're once again joined by Darth. I don't have a bit for Darth this week, but I made him dress up.
Well, I am drinking, so give me like another hour, and I will be making my own bits.
Is it? Okay. Hopefully they get better. Is today retirement day, or is that next week?
So today was my technical last day. My replacement will be there Monday, and I will be there Monday as well. But I'm kind of just showing her around and everything. So Monday will be my official last day, and I'm planning to sneak in really early, bring a bunch of like goodies, and have them laid out and put like a big old sign that says "We love you and we'll miss you." And then not tell them that I was the one who did it.
This is perfect. I like it. This is very good. So this is technically a pre-retirement party. This is, oh my, you know what this is? This is like, you're at the bar and you're like, yeah, last week's my next week on the force. Like, I think this means that between now and next recording session, you're going to get killed in action.
Yeah.
Ooh.
Knock on plywood.
It's very funny. Look, if last episodes, we watched felt like a pop remix of classic Daredevil, this episode is firmly in the sort of funhouse mirror category of storytelling, where we take a complete revisit at the final episode of Netflix's Daredevil. Once again, we're in a ballroom, we have a kingpin, and we have Benjamin Poindexter intent on murder. Now, before we get into this episode, I wanted to get some high-level thoughts because the internet is very divided on this episode. I did something I don't usually do, which is I looked up what other people think. In no small part because we've been... Listen, I know. Could you imagine me caring about someone else's opinion, Patrick? Never in my life. The ego is too strong. But no, I was curious because I had no idea what to think of this episode. So I guess, yeah, how did this one land with you guys at a high level, if you want to go first, Pat?
I overall quite liked it. I thought this episode sort of justified like all the setup that was happening. Like I feel like it's brought all the characters to an interesting place. I feel like the dialogue and like the tensions were hitting, and like the pacing was like like allowing those to hit. And yeah, I don't know. It's. I feel like, in Disney's attempt to capture that Daredevil feeling, I feel like this does feel a bit like Daredevil. Like this really like sort of desperate climax of plot lines, and like everything's like kind of going wrong, and they all converge, and it's like really chaotic. That's classic Daredevil stuff, and I feel like it's replicating that pretty well here.
Do you think in no small part that's because they're literally copying what season 3 did?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, there's a lot of similar like imagery, like Fisk coming out in a white suit and dancing and stuff.
Yeah, I went back and I rewatched some snippets from that episode, and I was like, are they kidding? Like, did Netflix sign off on this? Yeah, it's interesting. Darth, what about you?
I really was hoping to have another viewing of it prior to now, but I was over the moon on my first viewing. I absolutely adored it. Because it filled in a whole lot of the issues that I had been complaining about, and bringing the villain back from the very first opening 10 minutes. But then I could see why a lot of people would have been upset with it, because it did a whole lot of the plot points in this seemed to kind of come out of nowhere, almost like they were listening to people complain like I had been doing. Like, you didn't explain this and this and this and this, and they're like, oh, let's use this episode and we'll explain this and this and this and this. So bringing in Poindexter kind of like happened out of absolutely nowhere, and I'm like, this should have been hinted at in like episode 2. Like, slowly build up to this instead of just having everything happen in one single episode. Like, I don't know, the entire use of that character happened in the first like 10 minutes of the, season 4, and then it's not season 4, I know you're gonna yell at me, happened in the first 10 minutes of episode 1. And then like all of this episode, even though it was like just like the beginning and the end or whatever. So it did feel very like slapped together, and it was just very much like to try to address issues. But even then, like, if I'm not thinking about any of that stuff and I'm just into it, I adored it.
Yeah, I think the pacing is the biggest issue in this season. And I think this is, for me, is where that stuff comes to a little bit of a head. I was saying that I deliberately separated the finale episodes. We're just talking about episode 8 today. I deliberately separated the finale because I think a lot of the time with TV in particular, it's really easy to view like the last couple sequences of a show, like the last couple episodes, as, well, if the ending works, then I often find it very difficult to then actually have a good, keen view of like the structure of the season. And this episode, to me, like, I think I agree with you, Darth, the notion that it sort of comes out of nowhere. And in some ways, to Pat's point, that is indelible to the Netflix vehicle at times, which is like, sometimes things just happen because there's entropy and like there's chaos in the city. But this really feels like, from an editing perspective, they are trying to put you into Matt's subjectivity and his feeling of things feeling chaotic and random and spiraling out of control. And like, it's cool. I just don't know that it makes for a great viewing experience, was my kind of feeling coming off the back of this, where I think in a postmodern context, I was like, I can appreciate what this is doing, but purely as an episode of TV, I was like, I don't know if this worked for me. So I guess we'll get into it. Today we're talking about episode 8, Isle of Joy, directed by Justin Benson and Aaron Moorhead, and written by Jesse Wigato and Dario Scarta-Payne. Scarta-Payne, of course, being one of the co-showrunners and the kind of guy they brought in to fix the ship. So no surprise that he's at the writer's desk, and we're seeing some old Daredevil come into the frame. So Patrick, when you're ready, could we please hear the extremely plot-heavy summary?
In a prologue, we follow Dex, still locked up as he ponders blue flowers from within his cell. Guards arrive and toss Agent Poindexter into Gen Pop. This cannot end well. Fisk and Vanessa seem to be on the same team again as Fisk takes Vanessa to his Kingpin lair. Adam is alive after all. Matt defends Daredevil from Heather as she pitches her belief that the violence transferred from Daredevil to Muse to her. Buck shows up at Matt's apartment. Matt warns Vanessa that Fisk's involvement in their life is dangerous.
Heather.
Matt warns Heather. Yeah, I was going to say. I keep getting them confused as well. Matt warns Heather that Fisk's involvement in their life is dangerous, and somehow they're now going to the mayor's ball. Vanessa shoots Adam dead, and at last the mayor and his wife seem to have reconciled. McDuffie tells Matt that Fisk is responsible for moving Dex into Gen Pop. For some reason, Fisk promotes Daniel Blake to Deputy Mayor of Communications. Elsewhere, Matt starts to crumble at work and yells at a client as the weight of the world rests on his shoulders. He visits Josie's, where he puts together that Foggy was celebrating an early win the night he was killed. Matt heads into hell. He visits Poindexter himself. Dex bargains for his life. He'll tell Matt why he killed Foggy, but only outside. At the mayor's ball, we follow a few beats. Daniel Blake and BB reconcile, and Heather is stood up by Matt. Meanwhile, Dex uses his own bloody tooth to escape prison. At long last, Matt arrives at the ball, but he's all over the place. He and Heather get into an argument. Fisk meets with Jack Duquet. I think it's
it's close enough.
To use Jacques I'm just gonna call him Jack, to use Jack's vigilante alter ego as a pressure point. Meanwhile, Officer Powell assaults a reporter by shoving the man's hand in a deep fryer, proving they are truly above the law. Heather continues to find Matt's behavior troubling. The episode crescendos as Vanessa and Fisk dance, while Matt and Heather do the same, and Ben Poindexter arrives on scene.
I heard you combine those. Poindexter.
Yeah.
Boing.
Poindexter. Matt confronts Vanessa for having Foggy killed. As Dex lines up his shot, Matt leaps in front of a bullet intended for Fisk.
Asterisk on that last sentence. That is my assumption, based on the sort of staging. Boy, this is a really weird episode. It opens with this, like, artsy freaking, like, shot of this guy, like, picking, like, blue flowers, and then it sort of pans backwards through the bars and into the cell, and then you're sort of on Dex. And yeah, he's under some kind of, like, specific protection. Obviously, we know that he is, he's sort of perpetually in this straitjacket because he could use anything as a weapon. But also it seems like maybe because he was an FBI agent, they've sort of kept him in, like, isolation or, like, a special cell or something. And he's getting thrown into Gen Pop. And him showing up here was really weird. I don't know, like, how did you guys feel, like, did seeing him again, were you like, aha, the plot, or were you like, what? what was the vibe having sort of Dex back, and the implications that this sort of brings?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like it was left open, like, as a mystery. Like, you know, what was Dex doing that night he went on a rampage? Mm-hmm. I was pretty sure we were going to see him again. They gave him a costume and everything, you know.
Yeah, that's it.
So
yeah, we know, like, you don't put him in the show without bringing him back. You don't put the Punisher in without bringing him back. Like, I maybe incorrectly guessed that the task force would be, like, the big bad at the end of the show. Maybe it's going to be Dex again, which we'll see how that goes. I don't know.
¿Por qué no los dos?
Maybe, yeah. But every time I thought they were going to do something like that, they just don't. Like, you know, with the Muse thing, where I was like, oh, I thought it was going to be like Matt versus Muse versus the police. They're like, no. It's too complicated.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's happened before, right? Like, Matt taking on the FBI agents as well as Ben Poindexter in the third season.
Yeah, totally.
He's like juggling enemies, yeah.
Or even, like, in the ballroom scene where he's, like, trying to fight the FBI but also stop Dex from killing Fisk. And he's like, you know, he'll be like punch an FBI guy, and then he'll, like, throw a fork to, like, stop a plate that Dex has tossed or whatever. You know, that frantic kind of multitasking that we love to see Matt do. Which he seems incapable of doing in this episode. Boy, my boy is rattled. Yeah, what about you, Darth? Were you like, haha, he's back? Or were you like, what's going on?
I may have literally yelled at the TV, what took you so long? Because, like, since halfway through episode 1, I'm like, where is he? Why isn't the main villain... After killing Foggy, he's the main villain, like, in my mind. And he just disappears. So I'm like, I was elated that I'm like, I've been begging for this. Finally, thank you. Why did it take so long? So I was also angry in my elation.
It was you were truly living the Daredevil life, excited and annoyed and frustrated. Truly channeling Matthew Murdock. Yeah, the big plot kind of anchors in this episode are Fisk and Vanessa have their weird reconciliation where he takes her to, like, the Kingpin lair. Still the weirdest fucking room. And I didn't put this together until the establishing shot, but this layer is clearly near the Red Hook development that he's working on. So he's sort of
or in it.
Yeah, it's like,
I think it is the port. Yeah, I think it's a building, like, in the port.
Yeah.
Because then it's like it's not part of any jurisdiction or whatever, so, like, whatever happens there is, like, he can't be charged even if they found Adam.
He's like,
is how I was interpreting
it's international waters, bro. What are you talking about?
Fisk
Yeah.
Fisk loves an abandoned warehouse. That is his jam.
It's very true. Yeah. He loves an abandoned warehouse. He loves like a half-finished skyscraper. Do you know what I mean? He loves an alley where he can a car pulls up and you get in and you talk to him and then you get out of the car. You know?
Yeah.
Those are the three locations. And so
Is that an intentional in at least two of the Batman movies I can immediately think of, both Nolan's and the new one, Batman is frequently meeting someone in like a half-finished skyscraper. So is that somehow like a callback?
God, we could relitigate the is Daredevil just Batman argument again. I don't think so.
But it's Fisk.
But it's
Fisk. It's not Daredevil.
But it's like, come on, it's structural, like aesthetically, like my feeling on this one in particular is like they filmed a bunch of this in New York, and then of course they filmed a bunch of it in Vancouver because it's Daredevil. My feeling is that locations like this are very New York, and then the stuff that we're used to seeing is Vancouver. So my guess is it looks like Gotham because Gotham is supposed to look like a mix of Chicago and New York, and Daredevil is shot in two cities that are New York and Vancouver looks a lot like Chicago. So it kind of makes sense. I think it's like a product of the production as much as it is any conscious decision making. Plus, it's just kind of sick. Like, you know, that first scene that we get Fisk in where it's like the roller door comes up and he's just there. And this one where, the shot we get of him the last episode walking down the fucking stairs and there's the light, he's backlit and there's fucking smoke and it's like, hell yeah. Like, I think it's also just, it's cool to be in an abandoned place, like abandoned warehouse. Like, it's a cool look as well.
Well, and I feel like
really,
I feel like in a skyscraper that's being built, it's like kind of that thematically fits Fisk's whole thing as well. Like the starting of big enterprise, things in the works, that kind of thing. What's he cooking?
What's he cooking, bro?
Yeah.
The answer is Red Hook. He's cooking like a. Now I hadn't put this together, but this does feel like some sovereign citizen type bullshit because he's like got his lair in the middle of this place. He's going to build it himself. He's going to fortify himself in there. And at the heart of it, he has his sort of sanctum where he's going to be doing his kingpin stuff. I could see that being a maneuver where it's like, he's not going to give up power type of thing because he's got his secret police. He's got his fortress. He's sort of, he's hunkering down to become like a all-American terrorist type. That's maybe an angle they go. And so this cross-cuts, right? So this is, again, they're doing that weird cross-cut thing between Matt and Fisk, and Matt and Heather and Fisk and Vanessa. They rhyme too much is the issue, I think, with those names. But, they're doing these cross-cuts, and there's sort of these two, I wouldn't call them arguments necessarily, but these two charged conversations. So Fisk and Vanessa are talking about Red Hook and Luca, and we get the confirmation that they killed him together, that Vanessa wasn't trying to kill Fisk, so we get a little bit of payoff of that mystery. And then concurrent to that, we have Heather pitching Matt the idea. Now, this is the most someone writing a therapist who isn't a therapist. Heather pitches Matt this idea that the violence transferred from Daredevil to Muse to Heather, which is just nonsense. Like, it just makes no sense. And to me, feels like her coping in some ways. And yeah, Matt he's a disaster in this conversation. He's pushing her. He's like, oh, like, he's your client, isn't he? Like after Buck shows up, he's like, oh, like, how do you know that man? Like, no, seriously. Like, yeah, it's a very heated exchange between them. Even though Heather knows that, knows Matt's history with Fisk to some extent, obviously not the Daredevil stuff. Yeah, it's a weird conversation. I don't know what you guys kind of make of this argument juxtaposed with Fisk sort of taking Vanessa to see Adam, and he gives his little sort of trembling admission. He's like surrendering himself to her. He's sort of breathless. He's like, I'm better than I was. I am. And if I cannot be with you, Vanessa, I cannot be. And it's this he sort of surrenders himself to her, and then Vanessa just shoots the shit out of Adam, and they have like this. They like hold each other in like a weird romantic embrace. It's very uncomfortable. Yeah, what what was your vibe on this little sequence?
What do you mean uncomfortable? I thought it was the most romantic thing I've ever seen.
Darth is like
What an expression of love.
the cowards. They won't do it in the rom-coms. What is wrong with them? Shoot to death your boyfriend. That's how you get your husband back. Everyone knows that's classic romance.
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like this between Vanessa and Fisk, the thing going on there is like forgiveness, right? Like what Heather talked about, like forgiveness is the only way forward kind of thing. And you know, I feel like shooting at him is quite a literal symbol of them moving forward in their way. Whereas like, you know, Heather and Matt keeping secrets from each other and bickering and, you know, slipping backwards kind of thing. Mm-hmm. But yeah, with the Heather and Matt stuff, this is like a bit of, I feel like this is carrying on a bit of the contrivance I was complaining about in the last episode. You know, like there's no like real nuance going on with the motivations here. It's like we need tension here, so we're just gonna like, you know, amp up the worst qualities of their paranoia that they could have about each other. And for Heather, that's, you know, Daredevil and Muse both were out for themselves, or both trying to hurt me, and then, you know, Daredevil's like, Heather doesn't like vigilantes, and, you know, she's a Fisk supporter. Oh my goodness, like everything's terrible kind of thing. And you know, I get it. It's what you got to do in a story, in a 9-episode MCU TV series.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel that. That is a real. You've said that really well, because I was trying to put this into words last night, which is like, why does that argument feel so contrived or unrealistic? And I think in no small part, it's because nothing that Heather is saying makes sense for her as a character. I sound like Darth. What I mean by that is and not to say that like to be a therapist, you indelibly have to be progressive. But I think you'd be hard pressed to find a therapist or a psychologist who isn't like a deep subscriber to Jung and Freud, right? A traditionalist in that sense. I think you'd be hard pressed to find anyone who is doing therapy or psychology like this who isn't going to look at someone like Fisk and see all of the worst instincts of like the world that we live in. And the vigilantes make sense to me in some ways for her to, in the way that she was talking about them last episode, in that sort of academic context, that makes a lot of sense to me for her to be like, what's the implication for the masks? Like, what does that mean? None of that rhetoric is here. It's like she's forgotten. It's like they forgot her previous view of this situation and these characters, and they didn't even really try and tie it into what she had previously believed. Which I understand that trauma has like different responses and stuff like that, but I think it's the fact that it feels contrived is because it doesn't feel consistent for me with her character. Nor does it feel like the affective register that Matt has, which is to say, the affective way that he presents himself, right? The mode of conversation he's in, the extent to which he is gesturing or yelling or raising his voice. His affective register also doesn't really match the way that he would talk to her and engage with her critically about this, to me anyway. And so like Matt is behaving in a way that feels really incongruous, and then she is saying things that feel really incongruous, and it doesn't work for me because of those two things. And yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head, Pat. It's that sort of, it feels very contrived for that reason, and could have just done with a rewrite and maybe a bit of a slower pace of this scene, right? Let it boil up a bit, let it simmer, give us more of that quiet that lets us read into, you know, these little exchanges that they might be having, give us those little facial expressions. But instead, the edit feels like it's, well, we can't let any silence. We got to keep cutting between these two conversations so you don't get bored. Like, it's very much yeah, it feels a bit insecure on all fronts. Is maybe the way to say that.
Yeah, I feel like the only show to kind of do that well is like nuanced tension that goes at breakneck speed is a show like Succession. Yeah, it just doesn't. I don't know. Just doesn't work here for some reason.
Yeah. Yeah, that's interesting. I think the early seasons of Doctor Who sort of have some success with this. I rewatched Blink last night, off the back of our conversation last week about the sort of Doctor Who two-parter that Stephen Moffat wrote, patreon.com/ZeroIndent, if you want to listen to that. And what's interesting about short-form television is that in 42 minutes, someone like Stephen William Moffat can write an episode of television like Blink that is breakneck. And then when you step back and look at it, there's a lot of nuance, and there's like about four total scenes. But when you're in the episode, you're so engaged with it emotionally, you're so in it, and you get to the end of the episode, and there's about 3 points in that episode where it invites you to cry. So by the end of the episode, you're fully emotionally drained, and you get this absolute catharsis at the end of that. And it's all just so well paced and so well put together. And I was kind of hoping for something like this, right? Structurally, this episode is chasing that kind of feeling, where it wants all of this boiling tension to crescendo with Matt getting shot, and that being the kind of the beginning of the denouement into the finale, where we're going to get our big final action sequence. And him being shot should feel like an emotional release, where you're emotional and pent up and you're stressed, and he gets shot, and it's like, oh my god, like, okay, now what? And this pacing here is too quick that, like, by the time we get there, I'm too tired by the pacing that, yeah, it doesn't really work for me at a structural level either.
Although I like how they kind of stick with the tension and the chaos, and as you say, like Matt's subjectivity. You know, like everything is like sort of like it's I don't know, they've injected like every scene with like a shot of paranoia, and yeah, because they stick with it throughout that ball scene, and then I feel like, you know, I sort of like start to overlook the if there is any contrivances. I'm like, okay, this is just sort of like kind of a bit surrealized.
Yeah, I like the edits between the scenes when Matt just seems to like apparate into a new scene where someone is attacking him. Like, it's just cutting between scenes where he's going off the rails, and it seems like there's no time in between for him for any, like, and he's just bouncing between disaster to disaster. That I do really like. Yeah. It's interesting. I sound very negative. I did enjoy this episode, but yeah, I'm curious to see how the next episode lands for us. But one thing that is weird that I wanted to ask you guys is, now I know sort of ideologically why the writers did this, but you know, the next thing we get after Vanessa, as we said, shoots Adam to death, literally killing the past. Shout out to Kylo Ren. Fisk makes Daniel Blake Deputy Mayor of Communications, and it's the funniest little scene because you know the aide, the head of staff, is basically like, I don't know, this seems like a bad, respectfully, dude, like what are you doing? And Daniel's like, he immediately snaps into like grovel mode where he's like, oh, I swear to Christ, sir, I will not let you down. I'll work day and night for you, sir. I will burn for you. And it's like, dude, just fucking grow a spine. He's such a little worm. I love him. Love to hate him. But yeah, why does Fisk do this?
Don't know. He has this weird like impulse to like groom young proteges, and he just, I don't know, I guess he thinks putting him in a legitimate seat of power, even if it maybe because he's young, he can, get him used to that role fairly quickly while, being slavishly devoted to him.
Yeah, you can shape him in his image type of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like it's a long-term investment kind of thing. Yeah.
Which we kind of already see where in that previous episode, Daniel Blake just like goes at BB Urich in like a pretty fucked up scene where he basically like all but says, if you don't do this, we'll disappear you. All but walks up to that
Yeah,
line. Yeah, like it's fucked up. So I guess I think you're right. This impulse he has to groom proteges. And I use the word groom specifically because it is sort of I think aligned with some of that behavior where he's isolating Blake. He's making him into, like, it's very it's not good.
I think there's probably an argument to be made that promoting people who are true believers is better for your administration than promoting people who are more competent but aren't 100% devoted to the cause.
Yes. I think where this gets... I agree with that. I think where this gets complicated is I don't believe that there is any such thing as a true believer except for the person at the top. In some sense, in these types of institutions where you have someone who is sort of a totalitarian bend, or I guess Fisk is maybe more like a demagogue almost, like this sort of... everyone below secretly knows that this project is wrong, and then they will sort of justify for themselves why the line can keep moving. And I think Blake is the type of guy who the line will keep moving because it, like he says it to BB later, where he's like, I'm finally on the inside of something, and I'm going to run as hard as I can. And so I think it's also, I think, yes, it's like bringing in someone who appears to be a true believer, but then it's also bringing in someone who you sense has never been a part of something before, right? This is the sort of trap of this type of pipeline where it's a community that you've been lacking your entire life, and it's respect that you've been lacking your entire life, and you're sort of unaware to see that that is how they are using you, that is how they are manipulating you, and Blake is such a perfect mark for Fisk. Blake is like Dex, but with none of the complications, right? He's not a sociopath. He's not...
And none of the skills.
Daniel, put on this armor. I need you to...
Can you imagine?
I need you to become the devil. Just him throwing a baton and it misses by like 2 meters.
I was about to say I'm picturing the Office massacre scene in season 3, but with Daniel Blake in the costume, and he's throwing things, they're just like wildly like missing their mark, and like everyone's just looking around confused.
The first punch Matt throws, he goes down.
Yeah.
That's so funny. Guys, listen, if this show doesn't give me... Oh, you know what I really want to see in the next episode, in the finale? Let me see the Punisher just punch Daniel Blake's lights out. Just one hit. Just bang. Just deck him. God, that'd be good. This kid needs to be slapped around a bit. We don't necessarily endorse violence here, unless political, but this kid needs to get slapped. That's all I'm saying. Now, so okay, that does make sense to me. I'm curious to see what they do with this next time. Yeah, that's interesting. The other thing that this episode does well is it pays off the Belvedere thing. Not Belvedere, that's the whiskey I was drinking last night. What's the whiskey that the guys drink when when they win a case? O'Malley's or something?
McWhirters? I don't know.
No, that's a real whiskey pack.
Yeah. Is it?
Yeah, I should have written it down.
It's some Irish whiskey.
Yeah, it's something or other. And yeah, so Matt goes off the rails at work, screams at a client, screams at this tech billionaire. Just like... Now, I did a quick Google of like... Because lawyers love talking about TV shows. They love getting on Reddit, and they love being like... Actually, in Better Call Saul Season 3, Episode 5, when Jimmy does this, that actually wouldn't fly in a real courtroom. They love to do it on Reddit. And I was looking around, seeing if people were talking about whether this moment was malpractice. It turns out not enough lawyers watching this show to know for sure. But I like that McDuffie has this slow moment in this episode where she starts to realize, like, oh, all of this behavior from Matt over like the last couple months, that actually might be adding up to something. This isn't good. I sort of enjoy her realization that he's becoming sort of unstuck in time in some ways. It's a very the way that they're writing this season, it very much has that Vonnegut style. Like, Matt really is drifting and becoming completely lost and untethered. And this scene is such a great moment because you don't feel any. I don't know about you guys. I don't feel any Schadenfreude in this moment because it's just him using his Daredevil powers to shortcut a problem, and he's yelling at this dude. And like, this dude seems like a objective piece of shit, right? Tech billionaire doing embezzlement, but like, he's kind of fucking over McDuffie by doing this. Like, this is just like a problem that he's producing because he's feeling righteous. I didn't feel any kind of Schadenfreude with this. I just felt really bad for McDuffie more than anything.
Yeah. I like his line that he says to McDuffie. We're not serving justice, we're babysitting chaos.
Yeah. Right.
And like, yeah, that is a compelling justification for like why he's spiraling. You know, that does sort of summarize like, you know, where he's at, like emotionally and what he's thinking.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I think it would have been better though if they had done a different case, because the problem here is that the client was guilty and they were going to have to try to convince everyone that he was innocent. And so Matt theoretically has a leg to stand on here morally, even though he handled the situation terribly. Flip that around and have the client actually be legally right, but what he's doing is like abhorrent. And so Matt legally has no reason to say, you know, we can't, you know, you can't perjure us, or whatever his argument was. Like, there's nothing that he could say, and now it's all about him. Whereas the way that it played out, I'm like, he's got a point. Like, he knows the dude is lying. He cannot put him on the stand. So I'm like, the way that they played this out, I have to agree with Matt, even though he handled it badly. Even though it's like he has this unfair superpower, he now knows, he has this knowledge as a lawyer, he cannot put the guy on the stand.
But that's why it works to me, is that he is right. And like, this is the thing, like, that's the Daredevil project, is like, he's doing ostensibly the right thing, but it's the method that keeps being questioned, right? It keeps being interrogated. And I think this is trying, whether it gets there or not, this is trying to be in dialogue with that, where he's using this power to sort of to do the right thing, but the method is the problem, rather than him doing the wrong thing, I guess. That to me makes
I didn't think it was that. Like, I thought the whole thing was him just like lashing out and trying to get one over on somebody. Like, it didn't actually feel to me like he was trying to do the right thing, quote unquote, in this situation. More like he was using the right thing as an excuse to be a jerk.
Yes, totally. That is well said. But that's also Daredevil, is like an excuse to go and punch guys, right? Like, we get a lot of that in the Netflix run, where it's like, hey, like,
Yeah, fair.
You know, and then we get Punisher saying that to Matt earlier in the season, where he's like, you know, you're just looking for an excuse, aren't you? You know, you just want to beat on somebody type of thing. And this is verbal beating on somebody, I guess.
What the scenario you're describing, Darth, that's like one of the flashbacks we get in, I think it's season 1 Daredevil, where it's like the first job that Matt and Foggy get out of law school, and they're working for a big firm and they're defending some like big corporation who, you know, like their chemicals like poisoned to this other guy and gave him cancer, and then they're like, well, no, you signed the contract, you know, you signed an NDA, there's nothing. And they were big corporation was legally in the right, but, you know, obviously, like, and then Matt's, you know, really sort of torn about like, does this feel right to you? Yeah.
A good pull. Yeah. I also, a question I have here is, this feels like we've had questions about McDuffie's place in this show, and this it's starting to feel to me that in whatever the original draft of this story was, McDuffie was like a main character. Because she's really well constructed. Like, she's well constructed. She has good interiority. She seems like a character that the writers are familiar with. So I wonder how much of her has sort of been reduced to make room for the stuff from the previous incarnation of Daredevil. She feels very fully formed to me, which is just interesting for a, what is ostensibly a tiny side character in the grander scheme of the thing, or if she's going to become a bigger player if they end up going ahead with another season. I'm not sure.
Yeah,
I'm
I feel
so
like
glad you brought that up because I have a deep monologue. I have been waiting to bring this up, and for a chance to talk about this lovely character. And I don't really have anything. I just wanted to get that jacket.
No,
off.
that was good. That had the energy of a man. Like, I was expecting you to like roll up your sleeves and be like, "So let's get stuck into it."
Sleeves are rolled.
Oh, they're pre-rolled.
They were already done. No, I do feel the same way actually though. Like she always feels like she is a solidified character off screen. And like every time she's on screen, I'm like, I feel like we just missed like a whole bunch of stuff.
Yeah.
I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah, 100%. Well, that's my favorite type of character. Like, you're like, ooh, what are they up to? Like, they, there's this really good piece of writing advice that I got during my final, when I was doing my final piece, my previous degree, my writing degree, and it was during the novella edits, and they were like, the professor was sort of going through, and she goes, you have a problem when you introduce characters, which is you introduce them like they're in a play. She goes, you introduce characters like they're standing off stage, waiting for their scene to occur, and then they walk in, and then they engage with the hero in the story. She's like, the way that you want to write side characters is that the main plot is actually interrupting their main plot, and that as the story is going along, they have their own main plot happening, right? So like in book 2, for example, one of the biggest pieces of rework I did was to give Erica, the side character, and ostensibly the romantic interest to an extent, to give her like she had to have her own complete story going on. And every time that Maynard interacts with her, she's in the middle of trying to do her thing, and she keeps getting roped into his thing. And she's like, well, if I'm doing your thing, you need to fucking help me with my thing. And that was a really, really valuable writing lesson for me it feels like they understand that with McDuffie, where she's just in the middle of something else every time that we see her on screen.
Was Erica the one with the rapier?
No, that's
one?
Abby.
Oh, okay. I was about to say, because, well, I guess maybe it's the same thing with Abby. I don't know. But I definitely got, like, there's way more going on with her than is actually talked about in that book. So I was about to say, like, good job. You got it way back in book 1, but different character, so never mind.
But same principle.
I withdraw my compliment.
But same principle, right? And same with, like, Vanderbilt. He clearly has his own little agenda going on. It's just a really useful way to conceive of characters. And that is, to borrow a Rise word, that is how you get verisimilitudinous characters that feel like they exist in a place, right? Is that they have some other agenda that they're in the middle of pursuing. In the same way everybody is, right? When I was standing in line to vote last night, I was listening to the couple behind me, have a protracted, it wasn't quite an argument, but it was a robust discussion about their plans for the weekend, and like, oh, like, I wish you hadn't said yes to this without asking me first, and like, I could tell that the dude, they were having two different conversations at the same time, because he was talking about, oh, well, like, like, I gotta do this with the dog, and blah, blah, and like, they were doing that classic thing where people are talking past each other because they both had different priorities in that conversation, and the biggest thing you want to achieve with side characters in storytelling is the illusion that they resemble real people. I think McDuffie is a great one of those.
No, I don't. I want to know what's going on. Is it the Poindexter thing? Should I not have told you about that? You're late to meetings. You're insulting our client. Jesus, Matt, I barely recognize you. What is going on? Matt.
We put Poindexter away and it changes nothing. All right? We defend Hector Ayala and he's still murdered. Probably by the same cops who were out there assaulting citizens, by the way. All right? Leroy Bradford goes away for eating a box of caramel corn. Heather's assaulted by Muse, and she thinks Fisk is right. And now this asshole, this privileged sociopath can get away with ripping off teachers. We're not serving justice here, you know? We're babysitting chaos. This, us, what we do, it feels useless.
There you go. I said something positive about this episode. You're welcome. Okay, Matt goes to Josie's next. That's what I sort of have next. To get what is ostensibly a grilling by Cherry. Now, I cannot tell if we've been saying it wrong the whole time, but Matt says Jerry in this scene, and he's never said Jerry before. I don't know if they just didn't change that in. I don't know if they just put the wrong take in the edit.
I don't know.
Well, he was drinking, right?
Yeah, he was drunk.
He
just slurred it a little
day
bit.
drunk. Yeah. He basically gets grilled by Cherry, which is really funny. And yeah, it's the bottle of like O'Melvy's or whatever the fuck it is. When Matt puts it together that Foggy was celebrating that night at Josie's, celebrating early because he knew he was going to win his case. And that's why Matt becomes convinced that Fisk sent Poindexter to kill Foggy and to kill the witness. And this is sort of the reason why Foggy was killed. And this then prompts Matt to go visit Dex in prison and truly have a cursed exchange in a prison with a criminal, which is something that Daredevil as a show loves to do. We love to see our boy...
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, go in somewhere, talk to a criminal in a charged exchange. It's his favorite thing to do. So what do you guys make of...
Okay. I have been trying to find his first name. It's not immediately coming up, so I am wondering if his name is legitimately Jerry Cherry.
That'd be great.
That would be awesome. Oh my god. That'd be like if Fisk called his son, like, Franklin Fisk or something. You know.
Well, that's what's his name did. Like, he loved rhyming all of his names. Peter Parker, Doc Ock.
Yeah.
Blah, blah, blah.
That's a shame, isn't it? Superheroes really do be sounding like that. There's very silly names. I was reading a book the other maybe it was a comic book, and it was like a really grounded story. Like it was a like an adult comic. Like it wasn't like a fantasy one. I don't mean that in a condescending way. I mean it was a serious comic book. Anyway, but they still had comic book character names, and it was really off-putting. And I was like, I don't like this. Like it just didn't tonally fit the story they were telling. And I wonder if
Just trying to go for that Watchmen, like typical superhero setting or characters in a dark setting kind of.
Yeah, and like it's trying to be like prestige, and it just didn't. Yeah, it didn't work for me. But the thing that I was kind of,
I think it would be hilarious. Wait, let me get my joke in.
Go.
I think it'd be hilarious to see a superhero parody, and everyone just goes by like their first name. So you get like a Superman-looking dude, and it's just like Benjamin. Like, why do you have a superhero name? Why do you need to be called like the Eviscerator or something? Like, my name's Benjamin.
Yeah.
Like, I'm David.
it's me, Jimmy. You know.
Right?
Yeah, that's a good point.
Up in the sky.
There goes Jim.
It's Jimmy.
That's good. There you go. That's a free idea for any of you screenwriters listening. I know there's at least 2 of you. Now, yeah, we get this conversation with Dex. I'm curious what you guys made of this, because this is really... Is this somehow the first conversation they've had in this TV show?
I mean, yeah, other than him asking Dex why he killed Foggy, then promptly throwing him off a
I don't know
roof.
if we'd qualify that as a conversation.
It was an accostement.
Yes, an assault on all senses. Here, I'll give you the exchange, and then I'm curious what you guys make of it. So Matt there's a little bit to at the start, and then Dex kind of looks up and he says, "You hear that outside? That is the roar of the jungle, counselor."
Is that what I am to you?
Animal. One of them. Because that's what this is all about, right? Who's the predator and who's the prey? But I have questions too.
Everyone thought you were just a shooter on a rampage, didn't they? Yeah, settling scores, getting vengeance. But it wasn't, was it? You did it for someone, huh? You did it for Fisk, didn't you?
Another night in here, I might never be able to answer that for you.
Oh, sweetheart, what do you want? What you want me to do? You want me to get you out? You want me to file an appeal?
You know, in another life, you might be defending me. Because that's what good men do, right? Defend their worst enemies.
I'm bargaining for my life here, counselor. You want to know if Fisk hired me? I can tell you, but I need to be outside. Matt, I don't trust you for a second. Dex, I'm not lying. And then Matt walks past him, grabs his face, and just applies it to the table like 4 times. It's pretty brutal. And then he calls the guard in, and he's like, "Oh, he started hitting his head on the table," and then he leaves. Yeah, what do you guys? What's your take on this scene? Because I feel like we were pretty critical on the other version of this that we got, which was the Matt Frank exchange. How does this one sit with you guys?
I mean, it like muddies Matt a bit morally. Like he just like I don't know. It's interesting how this is like a complete reversal of like the power dynamic. And I like that line. What does he say? That's what good men do: defend their worst enemies. Like that is what Matt would do, normally. But like, in this scenario when once again the whole world is falling apart for Matt, like that shouldn't be something new to him. But like, yeah, I don't know. Like it sort of makes you think. Does it give a bit of credence to what Heather was suggesting earlier about the transfer of violence? Like it sure seems it's going that way.
Interesting. Yeah, I hadn't thought about that. I mean, my boy is definitely on tilt, and he has been for like 4 episodes. Like he is missing every headshot, and he is getting grief for it in the chat. Like people are like, "The fuck, dude! Like, what are you doing?" He's like, "I'm just,
Are you
just not in it."
speaking from experience? It's a very specific, oddly specific anecdote.
Every time I play video games with James, it's like the KD ratio is like James does team kills and like he's like 25-1 or whatever, and then it's like me, and it's just the reverse of his KD. And so between us, we add no value. Darth, what about you? What's how do you feel about this?
I'm just picturing the joy that I would get from watching that chat as all of the Call of Duty 8-year-olds are yelling at how much you suck.
Oh, it's worse than that. It's
anyway.
Counter-Strike, so it's grown men yelling at me. Being like, Flash B, and I'm like, I don't know what the button for Flash is.
In a very me typical comment, I did not like this scene because I have no idea what was going on in Matt's head. Because Poindexter says, "I'm not lying," which we know that Matt knows because he can sense the heartbeats. So Matt knows he's not lying, and his reaction is to take Poindexter and bash his head, which loosens a tooth, which lets him escape. So me putting all of that together, I'm like, okay, Matt did this on purpose because he couldn't legally get him out. So he put together that this was the only way. And so Matt sacrificed all of the guards he knew would die for Poindexter to escape. All of that just because of the dialogue that they had in that room. I don't think that's what the writers intended, but if you put it together, like that's the flow of events, right?
I mean, that is what happens causally. I don't know if that's what Matt intended, though.
I think it might. Yeah, I think that's literally what happens. I think it's more correlation than causation from Matt's perspective. I could see a reading where he does this on purpose, but that's like a big calculation that I don't think that Matt is capable of making in this current mind, like headspace. You know, his mind is
Yeah, I
so
kind of
chaotic.
wondered. Yeah, I like at first I was like, okay, so when he gets like to the doctor's office, like Matt will be waiting and he'll sneak him out somehow then, because we just had the same scene with the rich dude that like Matt's like, okay, I know you're lying and I'm not dealing with you, and now I know you're not lying, and I'm not dealing with you. So it's like he doesn't care what the truth is. So I don't know, the way that it played out, I think was needed to be rewritten. But I love the idea that he just bashes the dude's head in and is like, hey, cops. He started doing this to himself. He's crazy.
It's pretty
Like,
funny.
I love that. Like, keep that in.
That's interesting. I think where maybe we diverge is that the way that you just described it, which is, I don't know what he's thinking. He's acting really irrationally. Why is he doing this? That to me is like the point of the scene, and like it just continues his spiral. And is very much, you know, in that Vonnegut mode of like, you know, I said before, like he's sort of being written like a character who is sort of in some ways unstuck in time, and that's a very sort of Vonnegut maneuver, particularly in a sci-fi context. But what I like about it is, in some ways, Matt is not really in control of himself, literally, like both, you know, figuratively, but he's also not really capable of controlling what he says to this guy. It's just pure emotionality. It's pure like reptile brain response mode to this guy that killed his best friend. Like he is so incapable of seeing through his grief that he's been tamping down for 18 months. He's so incapable of seeing past what this person has done that he is failing to realize the opportunity that's in front of him, right? In truth, this is how you could take down Fisk, right? This is your avenue. This is your fucking bargaining. This is what you need to get to BB Urich, to publish the expose, to take down Fisk, right? And he just cannot see that because all he sees is red in a lot of ways. And that to me is why it's really compelling. But I do understand that...
That's not true. That's not true.
It's going to be a bit, isn't it?
He's blind,
God damn
dude.
it. You have a face that you do. I can see you coming. That's when you're supposed to say, well, Matt wouldn't. And anyway, stupid. Now you got me doing blind jokes. I hate what you've done to this program. Okay. Yeah, it's pretty gnarly. The escape scene is fucking wild. This is really creative. Yeah. What do you...
Yeah.
Yeah.
They always get so creative with Dex's abilities.
Yeah.
It's like that's the I love it. Yeah. The tooth, man.
He
I like how
spits it
I like
through
how
the guy's head.
he's just like yeah, I like how he's just accurate, like just like not like throwing accurate, like accurate in like every sort of sense of the word. Like he sees trajectories, you know, in his mind and stuff as well. Like
yeah. He's got like his visual calculus skill is like plus 30, you know. He's the type of guy that like I don't know if you ever like met anyone like this that has like really good visual calculus, but like they can be like, oh yeah, that building is at this degree angle from that building, and like they're correct, and I'm like, how the fuck, like he's that guy. Like he'd be a great architect in a different life, you know what I mean? If only he hadn't killed that coach.
I mean, bro, he like there are so many careers that would be open to him with his skill. Like any athlete, any sort of sport, you know, involving, you know, accuracy. Mate, he could be making millions. If he wanted
yeah.
to.
But I mean, you know, in some ways, isn't serial killer the original profession? You know what I mean? It's that.
Is it?
Is
the OG profession?
Is there anything?
Wait. When the monkey picked up the club, that was his first thought. He's like, oh, I could just kill everyone. I mean, it probably was.
Probably was, yeah.
Yeah.
What's kind of funny is he does the tooth thing, and then he just gets out of the straitjacket. I didn't quite follow how he did that.
He wasn't in a straitjacket. He was like Yeah, I don't know. He was tied. His hands were tied to the chair, and I don't know. He somehow like got loose with one of the straps, and then I don't know.
Just did a James Bond. He's like, I can just get out of this.
Yeah.
Is there that's making my brain be like, is there a character? Oh, it's Luke Cage. He does this type of thing all the time, where someone will tie him up, and at a certain point in the conversation, he'll just stand up, and like the zip ties will break or whatever. Like it's that type of moment. It's great. It's a really grim visual depiction of violence. But again, this show is gnarly. And I had the same question as Darth did, which was like, was this part of Matt's plan? Did he somehow do this on purpose? Unclear. Then we go to the ball.
And then,
right?
Well, just there's like a weird like I don't know, like visual motif of the blue. Like,
yeah.
Do you guys see that? Like at the end of the scene, there's like a blue tint on the
when it's
like,
from
on the
Dexter's
shot,
perspective.
Obviously, that's meant to tie into that blue flower at the beginning. Which at this point, are we supposed to know what that is? Like,
I don't think
it could have just been a poor transition showing its transitioning to nighttime because the ball transition to the ball at night.
Let me.
Well, it happens again at the end of the episode. Is the thing.
It happens again. Let me check my Daredevil Wikipedia. I think in the end of season 3, when they fix Dex, the last shot of the season is his eyeball, and the iris is blue, like the bullseye blue. I wonder if he sees the world through that color now because of whatever surgery they did to him.
Oh, okay. Interesting.
Is that something?
Operating on your lower spine would affect your eyes.
Yeah, that's comic books. You see, listen.
Two of the 3 rods of all the cones in his eyes got taken out. You can only see the blue spectrum.
Yeah, you guys get it.
Yeah.
That's normal stuff. I don't know. That's my best guess, anyway, is that it's some comic book nonsense. Matt sees the world on fire. He sees the world in blue. Doesn't quite have the same poetic resonance, but you could make something of that. Yeah, I'm curious what they do with that, ultimately. Or maybe he's just now colorblind. I don't know. It could be something like that. I don't know enough about colorblind stuff to know for sure.
Can
you imagine that he's getting amped up to give his big villain speech, and he's like, "You're all blue to me."
I was thinking at the end there's going to be a bunch of people in like different colored Daredevil costumes, and then to us we can see which one is the red one, but to him he's going to be like, where are you? So some really contrived bullshit about to incorporate his colorblindness.
That what that feels like? Oh my god. Okay. I've just quickly Googled this. And the first thing that of course come up is a Screen Rant article because they're a fucking content slop mill. And it's like Bullseye's blue lighting in Daredevil Born Again references the comics. Benjamin Poindexter's Bullseye alter ego is the opposite of Matt Murdock's Daredevil persona. Bullseye's sharpshooting skills are limited in Daredevil Born Again Episode 8, but every time he seems to engage them, the whole frame turns a deep blue. Throughout Daredevil Born Again, Matt Murdock is accompanied by subtle red hues. Subtle? Okay. Which symbolize the resurfacing of his Daredevil alter ego. Likewise, Benjamin Poindexter's blue lighting represents his unstoppable Bullseye persona surfacing. Apparently, every time he's feeling pressured or ready to let out his violent desire. I understand that like someone has to do this job and write this slop, but like their conclusion is it's blue because his classic comic book costume is blue.
Yeah,
that's nothing.
Those sites like Screen Rant and stuff, they're like AI content before AI content was a thing.
Yeah, but it's just some dude getting paid for like every 1,000 page views.
Getting paid like $6 an hour.
I like
to be fair, that could have been as much effort as the writers put into it. They were just like, Daredevil's red. What if this guy sees blue? Maybe that was it.
I still like imagining the Sliding Doors universe where Pat, you ended up doing that for like a job. and it just drains you of any like life that you had left, and you just become like a husk by the time you're 30. Being like,
Yeah, that'd be sad.
Daredevil, Born Again comic books. You'll actually find that the reason that Bullseye sees blue is that Wilson Fisk wears white. Like, you know, you're just there at the keyboard losing your mind. It's nice. It's a nice universe to imagine.
If I had that job, by now I'd be using ChatGPT.
I have to imagine that all of these sites are thrilled about generative AI because it means they can lay off even more writers. Yay! The end of the world's going well. Now, which, you know, and I understand that like there are different types of computing that are sort of resonant for different activities. We can get into that. That's a different conversation for a different day. Anyway, we're back at, so let's go to the mayor's ball.
You're arguing with yourself.
Yeah.
We're not even talking.
I know. Sometimes I have to produce myself in real time. I was like, that's a conversation for another time. I don't want to get into a rant about like what AI should and shouldn't be used for now. So we'll be here for hours. So anyway, and then I have to explain like what quantum computing is good for and what binary computing is. Like, we'd just be here for a while, okay? And that's not what people are here for. They're here to hear us freaking talk about Daredevil. And then at some point for me to scream about socialism. Those are like the two things they want to hear. Now, let's go to the ball, which is obviously why we've all dressed up. Asterisk.
And I immediately have a problem.
With?
I think there's a 0% chance either one of you noticed this.
With the ball?
Like, yeah.
Was your...
Like, introductory shot at, like, as soon as you go into the room of the ballroom.
No, I didn't tune my brain into CinemaSins wavelength this week, so I missed it. I don't... They go into the ball? What?
Like, so there's you hear the music for, like, a half second before the shot actually comes in, and it starts off on a trumpet playing. And then it cuts immediately to, like, a medium close-up of a trumpet player, and then kind of, like, pans around the ballroom. The trumpet player has a mute in. The sound of the trumpet is not muted.
God damn it.
I yelled at the screen. And I was going to have a trumpet here with a mute to show you the difference.
It's sometimes difficult to spend so much time talking to you and Eric, because every now and then I get, like, jump scared by the fact that you guys are band kids. It's just... I'm going to look, and I'm going to have to believe you that that is true. Opening shot of a trumpet. Yeah, I see the trumpet. Hold on. I fast-forwarded too quickly. There's the security... People walking in. Fisk's secret police are here. There's a man playing a trumpet. Oh, so the mute is like the bit that's stuffed in the end
of
the
the juicer.
Yeah.
Looks like an orange juicer.
I guess I could explain. It kind of muffles the sound. If you think like jazz trumpets, then it's kind of like that kind of sound, rather than the clear open tone that you would get from a normal trumpet without anything obscuring the sound as it comes out of the bell. So it's very distinct, very distinct. If you've been in music or band any length of time, you would immediately be able to differentiate the two sounds, and especially when they showed like a close-up of the trumpet, and like I pointed at the screen and I yelled, and I'm like, wrong, wrong.
Damn, dude.
We got you.
Eat your heart out, CinemaSins. Damn. We got you, bro. Screen Rant. 5 mistakes you didn't notice in Daredevil Born Again. Number 1. Trumpet. That's so funny. It's also...
Yeah, watch the AI find that. Yeah. That ain't gonna happen.
Yeah, watch the AI pick up on that, bitch. Now, okay, so it's a black and white ball, and the second that I learned that, I was like, I know what this show is gonna do, which is someone's gonna show up in red. And I didn't have good money on who it was gonna be, but I was like, I know this maneuver. I've watched television before. And of course, we'll get to that in a second, because that kind of comes a little bit later. First thing we get at the ball is Daniel Blake having the most vile vibes, like just rancid energy. Like, and it's subtle. Someone is hooting and hollering on the street. I don't know what they're yelling about. And he kind of creeps up to BB Urich, he sort of sidles over to her, and he sort of explains his pitch to her of like kind of why he's been a dick. And he says, you know, I'm finally on the inside of something. I'm gonna run as hard as I can now that I have it. And this sequence of the ballroom is the first time that we sort of put together that BB is actually fully playing him in some way. Yeah. And he sort of gives the good news of like, I'm the, you know, deputy mayor of communication. Meanwhile, Jack is back. And I was like, let's go. And I secretly was like, is Kate Bishop gonna show up? My girl gonna be here? The answer is no, but, you know, a boy can dream.
Yeah, it's a pretty hopeful speculation.
Yeah, I don't know that they could afford her for this show, let's be real. But
I legitimately can't tell, is he into BB, or are they just like, does he see her as a friend?
I think initially he's into her, and I think, like I said last time, he is a wife guy. The second that she shows him any interest, he'll be romantically interested in her forever. Is my feeling. Like, I think that he is enough of a gormless rube that he would never make a move. But if she made a move, he'd be like, I'm locking that shit down. He'd be doing it like like some people do, where it's like, date 1, I love you. Date 2, here's a ring type of shit. That's my feeling. But I think he keeps it platonic until she would make a move.
Yeah, and I feel like
I totally saw her. Go ahead.
I think that's what like makes his character quite interesting. Is that like you'd expect some you know, slimy like political climber to also be like a slimy womanizer, but he's actually quite respectful of BB, other than threatening her life. You know, but like that's in a different camp, a different mode than, you know, making a move on her kind of thing. And I feel like that's an unusual pairing of those two qualities.
Right. Yeah,
does that make sense?
It does. You can be civil and be a monster, right? We know that. That's a classic Fisk thing. And that is part of what that's part of what the far right thrive on, is they go, well, like, we're being civil, we're being polite. And it's like, no, like, you're running a secret police that's like assaulting people and disappearing people. You can act civil, but you're not civil. Like, you guys are fucking monsters. And Daniel Blake is the perfect encapsulation of that.
They cannot act civil. I gotta correct that one. They cannot act civil.
They can produce they can fetishize the aesthetics of civility, is maybe the way to say it. Whether they can achieve being civil or not is a different question.
I've started watching like Mad Men recently, and you know, like that. Obviously, that's a very different setting, you know. But in that show, you know, it shows like, oh, there's a bunch of, you know, slimy men who, you know, like the, you know, who crass and rude to women, like straight up, and then there are other men who, you know, try to, you know, be friends with women only for the shoe to drop, you know, pretty quickly into their relationship, and then he'll make a move, that sort of thing. That's what I was maybe expecting from Blake, but as you say, he's the kind of person to like not make a move at all until like BB would, you know, whether that's out of like a respect or, you know, something else, and maybe like a lack of courage or whatever. But yeah, I feel like either way, I feel like that is still like, I don't know, a respect for like women that is uncharacteristic of this kind of character, in like, you know, in specific, who's like, you know, who has these particular political views and stuff.
Yeah, I mean, it very much has the energy of that scene where I think it's Kinsey is showing Peggy around the office for the first time, and it starts as
that one.
Like like you say, like it evolves from like, oh, he's just being friendly, to like at the very end he starts to hit on her, and it just happens really slowly. And it is definitely there's a type of man who equates sort of that type of civility with goodness. But Blake, I don't think Blake is in the same way that Fisk wouldn't ever really make a move on Vanessa until she expressed her interest. I feel that Blake is very much the same way, and they are doing a lot of work to parallel Blake's sort of and whether he's copying Fisk. That's the other thing that I also wonder, right? How much of this is authentic Blake, this is how he would behave normally, and how much of this is him cosplaying as, Fisk 2.0. I think there's also another question there. Yeah. Like you say though, Pat, really well written and super compelling character for that reason, right? He's complicated.
Yeah, and to your thing about like, now that we know BB is playing him, like I am still kind of up in the air about that, like that, because that is also what I initially thought, but like the just how they so honestly bring up the thing about him threatening her, I feel that complicates it a bit, because I'm like, okay, like if she was like really, playing him, like pretending to go along only to, like really declare him her enemy later on, then I feel like she would do that, thing with the fake smile and be like, oh, don't worry about it. But like she kind of like meets him halfway and like is like, I'm pretty mad at you for threatening me and like doing what you did. And then they seem to move past it. So I kind of think that where it's going is that they are forming like a genuine relationship that is going to reach some sort of, ultimate dilemma, either at the next episode or the next season.
I agree with that. I just don't know that is mutually exclusive to her also playing him a little bit, right? That can be an authentic relationship, right? You think about, people who go undercover and things like that, because that's kind of what BB's doing. This is to stop you from like building actual friendships, even though you have this other agenda or you have this other thing that you're hiding. I think it's
I agree. Yeah.
It's a both and situation. Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is pretty cool. It's not really something, I don't know that we've seen. Maybe the closest we've seen to that is Ray and Dex's relationship at the sort of start of season 3, where Ray feels some kind of responsibility for Dex a little bit, and increasingly starts to feel a responsibility for Dex, even when he realizes that Dex is maybe a problem. Same with Ray's supervisor, where she genuinely likes Ray, even though she is working for Fisk and doing all this dirt behind the scenes type of thing,
Yeah.
Or the Elektra and Matt.
Elektra and Matt, yeah. I mean, in some ways, right, like the Daredevil story as a whole is really about like concealing parts of yourself and suppressing true parts of yourself, and trying to deal with your elemental nature. And, that all starts and is progenerated by that moment where Battling Jack decides to stop lying, right? Where he decides to stand up and win the fight and have some and he says, we're gonna have some goddamn pride, Maddie, right? Like he decides that the deception is now insufficient. He takes that brave step, and Daredevil is a show about people finding that courage among the chaos and doing the right thing despite what it might cost them personally. It's very much of a piece with the whole the themes of the whole thing.
My semi-tipsy self just took the phrase elemental nature, and I'm like, oh, what element would Matt possess? And I'm like, oh, fire, because he sees everything on fire. And then I'm like, you idiot, this is not like Captain Planet. That's not what he's talking about.
Would he be fire, though? I don't know that he would.
It wasn't supposed to be a legitimate thought. That's why I was laughing.
I don't know
It'd
what.
be some sort of darkness element.
Yeah. That's not a thing, Pat. The darkness element?
Yeah, a dark type Pokemon.
I was
Right.
gonna say dark.
Fine. I will take the L on this conversation, I guess. Sure. Matt Murdock is a dark type Pokemon, I guess. You happy?
He's dark and fighting.
True. Or is he one of those Pokemon that looks like they're a fighting type, but they're not? And it's like, guys, why did you make the art look like that then? Anyway, Pokemon's a bad franchise. Jack is back, which I already said. He has a little conversation with a B character from somewhere else in Marvel. I don't know who this lady is, but she's clearly someone we're supposed to recognize. You know, initially at the party, and he's like, oh, like, you're alone, like, who are you supposed to be with? Like, I don't know who this lady is, but she seems like she's a character from somewhere else.
Because they initially said, oh, is Arthur not joining us tonight? And for a second I was like, did he say Adam? Like, is her husband Adam? Like, but no.
Okay, so she was one of the people in like his first ball where or his first donation funding, whatever, and he was trying to get money and all of them shot him down, and I'm pretty positive she was one of those people that shot him down, and she's looking for her husband because Fisk has kidnapped her husband in order to force her to agree to his demands, and that's why she looks so frazzled.
That sounds right. Yeah, that sounds right. That makes sense. Yeah, because she's the one that basically is like, you know, we see who you are, like, this is like a self-serving, you know, endeavor that you're just trying to use to destroy the unions or whatever. Yeah. Okay. That makes sense. Geez, Fisk is quietly going like full mob boss behind the scenes, huh? Just really like...
Yeah, which is the really interesting thing about the bit between he and Vanessa earlier, where he shows Adam to her, and he's like morally in jeopardy. He's like, I have changed, I am different, and he's showing her the man that he has kidnapped and beaten and jailed in order to prove that he's different. And all of this stuff is just proving that he's not different. And I wish that they had just like come out and said it, and like she shoots at him and she's like, no, you're not different, and I'm not different either, this is who we are, or something like that. But they don't really come out and go that far.
Yeah, I mean, I think we're still supposed to have the question. I think that's probably why they don't litigate that directly. We're still supposed to be wondering, like, does he really believe that? And does Vanessa really believe that? And I think we will. I think the point of that ambiguity is that we will get, hopefully, an answer to that in the crescendo of the season, right? Because that is the question for these two characters.
I may just be traumatized from Kylo Ren, but that's really what this feels like to me, where the writers are like, they keep like dangling hope that maybe he's a good person. Maybe he's a good person. Maybe he'll get his redemption. And like that thought is what keeps people interested in the character, which just feels disingenuous a little bit.
I could see that. Yeah. I mean, I don't think there's any universe where Fisk gets redeemed. But I understand what you're saying, which is like, yeah, it's the carrot to keep you watching instead of actually just doing a good story. Right?
If he has a vision of his dead dad, remember this conversation.
Fuck. That does seem like something we might do. He had lots of flashbacks in season 1. Makes you think.
And he has talked about his dad a lot, even this season.
He won't shut up about when I was a boy. Come on, bro.
My father.
Yeah, you know what's also interesting that I didn't notice until the start of the previous episode when Matt and Heather are talking, is that Matt's mom is just not in this show. Which is like kind of interesting.
Oh yeah, that's Maggie.
Yeah, and it feels like a big missed opportunity to have not something to say about that necessarily, but it feels like those scenes that we're used to getting when Matt is spiraling like this and he goes and he talks to Father Lantom, and, you know, Father Lantom gives him like a parable or a some kind of story or some kind of wisdom. The show is, I think, lacking in that dimension. And that kind of goes back to what we talked about last time about that like dynamic range. I think it struggles to achieve something similar, even when they try and use Cherry for that. It just, they don't linger on it. They don't do enough with it.
Do you think it's Disney trying to completely separate themselves from Catholicism? Because there's only like the talk of it. Like that, he never goes to a church or anything, right?
He looks at a church at one point. He's wearing the necklace, but I think you're probably onto something, which is they are dialing back the religious stuff pretty heavily. Yeah. Which kind of makes sense, right? Like, how do you appeal to the most amount of people? Well, you try not to be too divisive when it comes to religion, right? Whether that's the case or not, I
Well,
think it's certainly there.
I feel like this show kind of has enough on its plate. Like, it's very focused on the world of like politics and like, and you know that with the shorter like episode length and all that, I feel like maybe it just feels like it wouldn't add much without like properly going into it.
I wouldn't mind seeing that. Fisk Fisk pretends to be a Protestant. Matt hates him even more. That's a joke for all of you Catholics. That's good. Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, they are just trying to do a lot already. But that's sort of to something we've been saying the whole time, which is it kind of feels like we want a lot more space for some of this stuff to be explored in like sort of more quiet, slower scenes. And I think that if they had more of that, there's an opportunity there to try and do some more stuff with religion. But yeah, I get it.
I just had a really deranged thought with like stuff going on in the real world. What if Fisk tried to become the new pope? Now that would be a piss off, Matt.
Have you seen the quote? Like someone this legitimately happened. Like someone asked Trump who he thought the next pope would be, and he's like, "I think I'd make a good pope."
yeah, I did hear that. Pope Trump.
Yeah.
Didn't he kill the Pope in your season 4? Or am I misremembering? In season 4? In your season 4, didn't Fisk was involved with the Pope at some point? Is it the Vatican? Wasn't he?
Oh yeah, that's right. They started out at the Vatican and they were like torturing some bishop or something.
Yeah.
Or some.
Some give me that.
You know. Do you know why that's super creepy?
Why is that?
Because like our VP like met with the Pope like hours before he died. It was like the last person the Pope talked to before he died in real life. And then you came on and said that, and I'm like, are you calling this season 4 like America? Is this what's? Do you know what's coming? What's season 5?
You know what's funny is the day the Pope died, I was like a video came up on my YouTube feed. Like, you know, so obviously it was clued in, but like it was like in the morning and he died in the afternoon, but it was a video of the conclave calling Pope Francis from like 12 years ago. And I mistook it and I was like, oh my God, did they elect a new Pope or did Pope Francis die? And I was like, oh, wait. And I said that to my partner. I was like, Pope Francis died. And I was like, wait, never mind. That's from 12 years ago. And then later that day in the afternoon, they're like, Pope Francis has died. And I was like, I think I just killed the Pope.
Whoops. It was me. Yeah, this show doesn't have a track record of naming famous people and then them dying soon after. Definitely Art for Artists did. That was a running theme. It's me like, who's this actor? And then like a month later, they'd be dead. But there you go. Pat still got the power. It's good to know it never left the company. Yeah, there you go. The next thing I have is Matt and Heather's weird argument where it's excruciating to watch. She's trying to talk to him, and he keeps zoning out so he can listen to the plot happening. Where Fisk is like trying to convince Jack to invest in his task force. And
this was so funny.
It's so funny. She's like, "You're not even listening to me right now, are you?" And then the camera pans as he's listening to the other conversation.
Yeah, he's like, "Yes, I am," and then immediately goes back to not listening to her.
It's just so funny.
I just think this whole thing from when Matt enters is hilarious because I like this little joke that he makes. He's like, "Oh, it turns out you're not the only one wearing Chanel No. 5," and he does this awkward little laugh.
God, this is the most like your boyfriend knows that you're mad at him and he's pretending to be in a good mood and you just want to shake him. You're like, "Stop pretending everything's normal." Yeah. Plus, like, there's a really great moment later where it's after he's like given her his little conspiracy of like, you gotta get out of here, like, you know, they won't let you leave, blah blah blah. And it's when Fisk and Vanessa are dancing, and she kind of I think it's really interesting decision making that they've done where she has like a hand on his shoulder the whole time, and she's not holding him back, but her hand is like, how do I explain this? It's not like she has her hand like around him. She's like holding him down almost. And it was one of those things of like, I bet the director went, have her anchor him in this moment and have him sort of be held in place by her hand, but not literally. It's just a really interesting little decision that to me felt quite pregnant with meaning, even if it wasn't a big detail or isn't necessarily something intentional. I certainly was able to put a lot behind the way that they were standing as they watched Fisk and Vanessa dance. I like what they do with Heather and Matt here. And his he's not listening to the extent that, like I was saying at the start, the editing and the sort of the camera work follow his subjectivity. He's not listening to the extent that, like, we literally go into a different room and then when we cut back to them, we just don't know what she said. You know, like it's really it's that thing of you know, when you talk about subjectivity and storytelling in novels, for example, you know, in a novel, if you're a close third-person perspective or a first-person perspective, you can do really interesting things with subjectivity where characters only hear conversations they're actually paying attention to, or only notice details that they're actually paying attention to or would notice. And you can do really cool things with ambiguity there. Obviously, Gene Willis' Booker the New Son being sort of the biggest example of that. And, you know, Gibson as well is sort of famous for some of that too. Equally with Vonnegut, who's come up a few times in this episode. But yeah, there's two plot things before we get to the dance and then the big time gun stuff. Fisk threatens Jack by basically being like, hey, I heard a rumor that you're the swordsman. And I saw this coming because I know Jack from the comics. I was like, that's interesting. So he's out there doing it. Maybe him and Kate Bishop are teaming up. Do you know what I mean? Like having a bit of a father-daughter day, you know, bring your dad to work type of thing.
That's exactly what I was thinking. I was like, it'd be cool if I, like in my own head canon, I'm like, after this, he went home and called up Kate and he's like, I need your help with something.
Yeah.
I need you to shoot someone with an arrow.
Yeah.
But it's a trick arrow that it wipes their mind.
Yeah. Didn't you get some fancy arrows from Hawkeye?
Yeah.
We need those right now. Yeah.
I don't know if you remember, but she and Fisk already fought.
True.
Yeah. I can't remember in what capacity though.
They do a
She
bit
just
of
shot him with an arrow or something.
Well, no, they do like a bit of a punch up. He tosses her around the room. She's trying to like escape and get away. And he's like trying to beat her up and stuff like that. Yeah.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah. It's a pretty scary little scene because he is like so big and strong and she kind of traps herself in this tiny room with him. Yeah.
Yeah, but he's got a Hawaiian shirt on, so you can't really take him that seriously.
I love when they put Fisk in the comic book attire and he has a little hat and a cane. My man is looking like Jimmy fucking Buffett. It's so good. Maybe that's what I should that's what you should do for Halloween, Darth. Just go as holiday themed Fisk. Get someone else to be corporate. You know, like people do like group costumes. You can all just be different variations of Fisk. One of you can be prison Fisk. Be great. And maybe don't wear prison attire outside in the US right now. That could end poorly. Now, yeah. So Jack gets threatened. He kind of blows Fisk off, and then concurrent to that, we get the Powell stuff, where there's just some random dude. I said he was a reporter in the summary, but he seems like he might just be like a citizen journalist. And Powell like drags, because the guy takes a photo or something. Powell grabs him, drags him into the kitchen, and then, you know, the police commissioner comes in and he's like, hey, like, what are you doing? You're assaulting that man. And he's like, no, I'm not. And then he shoves the guy's hand into a fryer, and then he, you know, shoves him away and he goes, now that was assault. And I'm like, this Powell guy is going to get his just desserts, and I am so excited about it. I was like, I want Fisk to get his just desserts, and I want the Punisher to kill this dude so badly. This fucking little poser.
Actually, yeah, that's a good point. Like, if you had any, like, I feel like, you know, when that bit, when he confronts Matt and he says like, I swear on this badge that I've never, like, I didn't kill Hector Ayala. I feel like, oh, they were trying to, you know, they were trying to give him some layers. But then if you had any like compunction about this guy after this, like, you know, or like before that, I mean, then that's gone now. You know, like he's a pretty bad dude.
Yeah, and the worst part is
Well,
like
I kind of wondered if this was supposed to show that like he was that person, and giving him this taste of ultimate power has led him further and further down the rabbit hole, and now he's deep frying people's hands because he can do it. Because it sure seemed like, well, actually Matt sensed the dude's heartbeat, and he was like, yeah, dude really believes he's like a good cop. So now he like knows he's a bad cop. So I wonder if they were trying to show that.
Yeah, I think maybe the point is that there is no such... So I think the show has a view that there is no such thing as a good cop, right? Anymore. There used to be. There used to be a world where you could have a good cop. You had someone like Ray Nadeem who, you know, while he was FBI, he is functionally the good cop in that season of TV. In this new world order, there is no such thing as a good cop. And I think in some ways what they're trying to communicate with Powell is that Powell is the type of guy who... I think Pat said it really well in the episode where they have their little exchange in the courtroom. Powell is the type of guy who is so institutionalized in policing that in some ways he doesn't see what he's doing as wrong, because if you're wearing the badge, you're doing the right thing, and you're doing it for the right reasons. And in some ways, he's a guy who has always been waiting for an excuse to go that extra step and to keep pushing the line in order to serve and protect or whatever. The way that I kind of read it is a little bit of what you're talking about, but also this is who he's always been in some ways as well, is I think how I read it. But also like that is my instinct to read it because of my politics. So you have to take that with a grain of salt as to whether that's sort of textual or if I'm bringing that to the text as well.
Isn't that an ongoing theme of the entire show though, that
Yeah.
like Matt keeps fighting
feelings.
who he has always been, and it's always been Daredevil. Fisk is fighting who he's always been. Elektra, I mean, it's pretty ongoing, right?
Oh, and so what you're saying that Powell has always been this guy and he's just been keeping it in check type of thing.
Yeah, and it's just another character that's adding on to that theme of
Yeah.
you know, you're letting yourself be who you are.
Yeah, fits within the themes of the show, yeah.
Yeah. Well,
So I think your reading is probably right.
yeah. There you go. No such thing as a good cop. Take that. Now Matt goes to confront the mayor, and it's awesome. Like he has this little moment where he's like whispering to Heather, and he's like, "Oh, like you know, they're not gonna let you leave now." He's like, initially he's like, "I have to go." Then he's like, "Wait, no, you have to go. No, wait, they're not gonna let you leave. Like you don't understand what's going on." And like he starts to sound like a crazy person, and he
Sounds like he's on drugs.
yeah, dude is amped, man. And he sort of he grabs Heather and he's like, "Yeah, we're gonna talk to him. We're gonna ask him why he hired you. We're gonna go talk to him. We're gonna go talk to him." Because you know he's saying like, "Oh, you know, he's using you to get to me," type of thing. And she's like, "I don't like. What are you talking about?" And he's about to confront Fisk, and then the first dance the music starts playing, and I was dying because this fucking TV show tricked me into watching Fisk dance again somehow. I don't know. I don't know who it is from the original production team that like slipped Scarter Payne like $100 bill and was like, "Yo, put my boy in there doing the dance because it's here again," and I love to see it. I love seeing Fisk and Vanessa dance. It's like one of my favorite things. And then, you know, they all sort of watch for long enough. Matt says to Heather, like, you know, if something happens, just get out of here. And they start dancing. And it's during this dance that things start to ramp up and get stressful because Fisk does a kind of whisper speak to Matt, which is something we haven't actually seen this season. You know, we talked a lot in season 2 and season 3 about characters using the sort of the whisper, knowing that Matt has super hearing. This is the first instance of that where Fisk sort of, you know, he's whispering like, you know, "What were you hoping to find, devil?" And it's as this is happening, and Vanessa says to Fisk, "I have something I need to tell you." Matt puts it together. It wasn't, in fact, Fisk that ordered the death of Foggy Nelson, because of course Fisk was away at the time. It must have been Vanessa. And Matt starts dancing with Vanessa, right?
Well, it's isn't it because that Fisk's henchman comes to him and he says to both of them, "Hey, Dex has escaped," and then Vanessa goes, "I need to tell you something," and then Matt puts those two dots together.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. Matt and Vanessa start dancing, and then Matt basically says, like, "I know you did it. Like, I know what you did." And as all of this is happening, Dex is now I can see like a CinemaSins type person being like, if Fisk has all this security, how does Dex just walk in and no one stop him? And it's like, it's kind of the point. Like, they're bad at this. Very, very canny understanding of the types of people that are attracted to this type of secret policing. And as this is all happening, it's all ramping up. And Dex is lining up the shot, and it's not clear initially who he's aiming for. One point, I thought he was going to shoot Heather, and I was like gripping the edge of the sofa. I was like, "Oh my god, they're gonna do it." So, who did you think he was trying to shoot?
Vanessa.
Darth?
Yeah, I would have gone with Vanessa as well. Well, it's hard to say because we don't freaking know what's going on inside his head. He would hold more of a grudge against Fisk because he had the dude's love of his life, quote unquote, because Fisk had her killed. So he would hold more of a grudge for that, but he hasn't acknowledged that at all this season. And the last grievance against him was from Vanessa not upholding her part of the bargain and getting him out of jail or whatever. So it could have gone either way, and we don't know what's in his head. So I hated this scene and the way it played out. Interesting you brought up Heather, because I was like, Matt doesn't know why he did it. I feel like the show doesn't know why he did it, and it would have made so much more sense for him to intentionally, like, he sees the gun, quote unquote, and is like, I'm not going to stop it. I'm going to let it happen. And either Fisk or his wife are going to get murked right now. Heather accidentally sees it and jumps in front of the bullet, and then she goes down. Just like you said, like, Heather getting shot is the most, like, impactful thing that could happen right here.
Interesting.
So, of course, they don't do it.
I thought that the reason that he shot Fisk was because Fisk is the one that had him thrown into Gen Pop to effectively kill him.
No, he would have known it was Vanessa, though.
It wasn't Vanessa, it was Fisk. When they're walking him out, he's like, where did these orders come from? And it's like, oh, from the mayor. Like, from Mr. Fisk. It's like the opening dialogue.
I thought they just said it was from... I thought they said it was from Fisk, and we later figure out, it was the female Fisk.
That could be true. I don't...
Yeah, I don't remember. I feel like they did say Mayor Fisk, though. But maybe I'm
Yeah.
Yeah. But also, I just, like, why would, if Fisk doesn't know about, like, Vanessa making Dex kill Foggy, then why is Fisk compelled to move him into Gen Pop to kill him?
I don't know. I think it's Cherry that... No, it's McDuffie that tells Matt that it was Fisk that moved Dex into Gen Pop. Because Matt, like, he's about to walk away, and then he's like, wait, like, who did it? And that's what pushes him over the rails, is that it was Fisk. I just don't know.
So, yeah.
Yeah, why Fisk does that. I think Darth might have a point, which is I'm not sure the show is entirely sure what's going on here. It makes for a dramatic ramp up, but it does feel a bit, and maybe we'll get an answer. Like I don't know. Yeah.
I really don't want to go CinemaSins on this next question, but that's kind of where it is. How does Fisk know that Daredevil has super hearing?
What indicates
He's
that?
whispering to him
Yeah, he does like the
from
whisper.
like across the room.
Oh, is he?
Yeah, he does like the whisper talk thing. It's when they're dancing, and Fisk whispers under his breath, like, "What did you expect to find here, devil?" Or yeah, and then it's because he knows that Matt can hear him.
Oh.
And that was another
yeah,
thing
I
that
s-
it felt like they only did it because the audience knows that this is a thing. And I feel like we talked about that earlier on a couple times.
Maybe it is the case that it's just a known thing about Daredevil. Do you know what I mean? Because he's kind of has a whole career that we don't see before Foggy's killed. Like maybe it's now common knowledge that he's got super hearing or something. I don't
Yeah,
know.
that would show up on all of the videos where they catch him beating up people. They would definitely see the hearing.
Yeah, dude. I have no idea. I'm not sure. I'm very confused.
I think when I watched it, I might have just like thought that it was like it was in Matt's head, like he was imagining Fisk taunting him, like
That's
whisperingly.
funny. That's a better reading
Yeah.
because it's less confusing.
Yeah, well, I just like, I guess I'm just still like on season 3 mentally, where that shit is happening all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just found the dialogue in the transcript. So it's when he's talking to McDuffie, so Kirsten. He says, "Do we know who moved him?" She says, "I knew you were going to ask me that. Matt, tell me." Kirsten, Mayor Fisk. So she does say Mayor Fisk. Which is why I kind of assumed that that's why Dex wanted to... that's why Dex was trying to shoot Fisk. That was my assumption anyway. Yeah. There you go.
When Vanessa said, "There's something I have to tell you," did Fisk say something like, "I already know"?
Hold on.
Maybe he was trying to cover her tracks.
Something. Something is not a good keyword to search for, guys. Tell you? I have something to tell you. Fisk says no, not here, not now. And that's when Matt puts it together and he says it was her. He was away and she was in charge. It was her. She did it. And then Heather's like, "What are you doing?" And then Matt cuts in a very uncomfortable little like moment where he then starts dancing with Vanessa, and bless Fisk's heart, he and Heather, so funny. It's so funny. This episode's funny. He's got his arm because Fisk is giant compared to Heather, and he's got his arm around her, and they're just sort of like, they're like sway dancing. They're doing this. They're like,
Yeah.
it's extremely funny. It's
I was like, "Oh, that's me. I can identify with that."
it's so funny.
Well,
And
I love how just improper it, like Matt is just like, oh, bumps into her. "Oh, mind if I cut in?" Just like whisks her away, and then Fisk is understandably like, "What the hell?" Like, that's not something you can do.
I quite like that both Matt and Fisk are trying like Fisk starts talking about like, have you ever wondered why Mr. Murdoch has a thing for vigilantes, Doctor? You know, like he starts to walk up to the line of, these two men are trying to destroy each other's lives really slowly. So yeah.
Oh no, I'm just imagining that Fisk turns over to Heather and he goes, "When I was a little boy." "You didn't steal a man's wife back then."
My father used to say that he who leads the dance. Oh, that's funny. Oh man, yeah, it's good stuff. And I mean, there's also like really good little Fisk characterization. Fisk says your boyfriend seems a little overly exercised this evening. It's a very specific sort of tone of phrase. And yeah, and we get that Heather's like, she's like, at first I was annoyed, but now I'm just worried. Good girlfriend. Matt really needs to get his shit together. And this all sort of ends with, as we said, Dex lines up the shot. Matt jumps in front of the bullet. And we kind of end with Matt lying on the ballroom floor, and the camera kind of inverts, and we cut to that blue again. And then we cut to red, and then it's credits. Yeah. Big time ending.
I have another. I didn't even think about it. I have another CinemaSins.
Yeah.
Is Fisk still wearing the same armored clothing that he's been wearing
We've had this conversation before.
the whole time?
We've had this conversation
I was
before.
gonna say, didn't we talk about this?
Yeah. I don't think so. Because Potter's in jail.
Because one
So
thing
who'd
that
make it?
one thing that really bugged me about like the past, it was with Foggy too, actually. Like a chest shot is theoretically the safest thing in order to kill someone, but if you're this dude who never ever misses, then he's just putting a bullet right in the middle of your head. And anyway,
That's a good point.
Well, is he
That's
trying
the
to
cinema sins I agree with.
is he trying to kill or is he trying to wound? Do you know what I mean? What's his end goal?
Oh, true.
Makes you think. Right?
Oh, one thing I wanted to bring up about you were comparing the dance now to the one prior, and like, have you thought about how they were like inverses? Like the result is the inverse. So the first
result?
one ended up. Yeah, the first one ended up with Fisk losing everything, and going to jail, right? Mm-hmm. Because Poindexter showed up, shot everything up, blah 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 blah. This one, the result of Poindexter showing up and shooting everything up, is now he is the scapegoat for Fisk being able to shut down the entire city and declare martial law and all of this stuff. So because of this dance, he gets ultimate power. The first dance, he lost ultimate power.
Yeah. I like that. Yeah. And then I
Yeah,
think
he was in a much more like he had everything to lose in season 3, whereas in this one he's in a much more precarious position to start. And then I think you're right. I think he's only has the opportunity to go up from here.
Yeah. That's interesting. I did just rewatch the scene, and it looks like Dex is aiming for Fisk's heart as he's turning toward the gun, and then Matt basically jumps in front of him and turns Fisk as he jumps in front of him, and that's why Matt gets shot in the shoulder. So I think Dex was aiming for Fisk's heart, but your point about the headshot is still relevant. It's interesting the deployment of something so similar to what we've seen prior. And then I think on that point of inversion, in the previous version of this scene in season 3, Dex is surrounded by all of the criminals that have made his empire possible. And in this in this scenario, he's surrounded by all of the legitimate, political people and wealthy people that he is pressuring into supporting him. And it's a much more forced is not the right word, but it's much more artificial because they're also then boxed in by his secret police, right?
I was about to say his literal SS is surrounding the room. Like there's a lot of force represented there.
Right. As opposed to previously where he was so secure in his total victory that, he has the FBI under his thumb. Like no one's going to threaten Fisk. Nothing anyone can do can stop Fisk. Whereas here, he feels much more like, that his position, while a great position, is still quite easy to threaten, or not easy to threaten, but is still something that maybe he's not as secure as he wanted to be yet. I wonder what the consequence of this is going to be. Obviously, Matt will be fine. Like, it's a TV show. But, the political consequences are interesting to me. Like, how does Fisk spin this to be about vigilantes? Do you know what I mean? Like, does he dime out Matt's identity? Like, what is his move here? Do you know what I mean?
I mean, he's definitely going to turn it into an opportunity.
Yeah. Yeah, I just don't know what the spin there is.
But also, how's he going to feel that Matt sacrificed himself for Fisk?
That's very true, Pat.
Yeah.
My worst enemy saved my life.
He's going to sit down he's gonna visit Matt in the hospital and be like, I have to thank you.
I have to thank you, Mr. Murdoch. Well, I mean, this is to what Dex said. If you're a good man, you defend your worst enemies, right?
Oh, true. Yes.
It's a bit
Good
literal.
way to bring that back.
Yeah. It's a bit literal, but point stands. Ironic
It's interesting though
from
that
Dex.
what y'all were just saying about Fisk sitting down and thanking him. It's something that I don't think it ever happened after Dex was trying to kill Vanessa while Fisk and Matt were fighting, and Matt like 5 different times saves Vanessa's life, and Fisk like never ever brings it up again, like at all.
Yeah. Well,
Like,
maybe it's
This woman means everything to me. You saved her life. Meh.
Well, but he saves her life
a-
and then uses it as blackmail.
is a tacit like
Yeah.
acknowledgement. I feel that like, you know, that their relationship is like not just trying to go after each other's throats, and you know they and that's why they're able to like have that conversation at the diner at the start of the season. There's more to their relationship than just like antagonism, and like moments like Matt saving Vanessa on multiple occasions is like one ingredient in that relationship.
Yeah.
Did I ever... Okay, if you want to go ahead, this is a total tangent.
The only thing I was going to say is it's interesting that Vanessa cannot stop ordering people's deaths. When she has a taste with Ray Nadeem, she's like, the first taste is free. Like, let's go. This woman has a problem. It's very good to me.
Well, one could argue that when Fisk was a boy, and they were, he was with his dad and the baseball bat and beating up that bully, like that's where he got his taste. You could argue that.
Yeah, 100. Well, yeah, absolutely. I think that crescendos though when he kills his dad. That's like obviously the pivot point of like it goes from a taste to like, oh, this is who I am now. Yeah.
Which is the same with Vanessa and Adam. Like she was only like indirectly responsible before, and now she pulled the trigger.
Yeah, and that seems to be their relationship now, that she does the dirt and he gets to keep his hands clean, which is super interesting. Like, it does make you wonder if he might end up throwing her under the bus to save his image or something, like, really twisted like that, Yeah, I don't know.
What I was going to say is I don't remember if I ever gave my pitch that I really actually wanted to see Matt team up with Fisk. Did we ever talk about that?
No.
So like there in the diner scene when Fisk is like, I want to do good for the city. I want to be a good mayor. And then Matt's like listening to his heart and he's like, oh crap, he means it. And then like Matt gives his spiel there about like second chances, and I believe in second chances, and it's my Catholicism and blah blah blah, and I'm gonna give you this chance and don't screw it up. And I'm like, work with him, like offer to work with him. If you think he is trying to turn over a new leaf and he wants to do good for the city, and you want to do good for the city, then team up. And actually having them work together with the villain and the hero, and then the villain is still trying to hide the fact that he's doing illegal stuff from the hero with the superpowers, and they're working together towards the same goal, that could have been really fascinating.
Well, I think that Matt is not that tolerant. Like he is the good guy, but like he hates Fisk's guts, like, yeah.
Yeah. Plus, like, it would be very hard for Matt to not see all of the people Fisk has killed, all of the times that Fisk just inflicted cruelty on the city, on Matt, on his friends. Yeah.
Which is funny because he's like, I believe in second chances, but also I don't believe in second chances.
I don't know that he... Yeah, that's the contradiction of Matt Murdock, right? Because the second chances thing is his Catholicism, which is always something that he struggled with. But also, I think him and Fisk work towards similar ends at times, right? We get that with the Muse stuff, where they're both ostensibly trying to achieve the same thing, but them achieving the same thing produces different outcomes depending on who achieves it first. Like, there's a competition between them that is, like, existential. Like, they are, like, cosmic enemies in a way that would be difficult to reconcile. Whereas Matt, eventually, in the end of that third season, brings Dex to an extent, onto Team Daredevil, even if he's completely out of control. Dex is definitely a type of character who I could see Matt working with and forcing himself to work with. He's just less... There's just less existential antagonism between Matt and Dex than there is between Matt and Fisk, even though Dex killed Foggy. That's kind of my feeling. I think it would be interesting. You're not wrong. I just think it is... You would have to do a lot of work in this particular show to get there over a long time, right? The best example I can think of, even though they ended up way overusing it, was is in The Walking Dead, where, you know, Rick chooses not to kill Negan, and after like 4 seasons, Negan gets to be a good guy, and be on Team Good and work with the good guys, and becomes like a central part of that story, and, you know, ends up having his own little spin-off TV show with a character whose husband he killed, you know. So it is possible to do in TV.
Yeah,
it's just you need runtime.
That's wild to me. Like, I didn't watch any of the Negan stuff, but the fact that ended up like his co-star is the wife of the character he killed. It's like, what the hell? Like, how did they possibly get there?
Yeah, they do a lot. I mean, it helps that Lauren Cohen is like incredibly like, she just attracts people to watching what she does. But yeah, it is a bizarre choice. But they take a long time getting there, right? Like, it's a very slow process. You know, he's locked in a cell for like 2 years of actual real life TV time. Yeah. So there you go, Darth. If you want that, slog your way through The Walking Dead. Torture yourself with it.
I appreciated most of season 1, and then fell off after that.
It's good. I think it's a good TV show. I think everyone is wrong about it, but that's not important. Yeah, I will finish that book one day.
It's good.
Yeah, it's good. That's all I've got for this episode. Do you guys have anything else you want to touch on?
Nope.
I guess, what do you want to see in a finale is my big question.
I want to see nothing get particularly resolved.
Okay.
If anything, I want like because I mean I know that like season 2 is like already well underway, like production wise, and you know, they're like setting up they're in it for the long haul basically, but if they can like make a cohesive like 3-season arc that's like much more intertwined than the Netflix series, I think that would sort of help to elevate it and like also like distinguish it from the Netflix series.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
because we talk a lot about each of those seasons being very much a different genre of story, and trying to achieve different things and being incredibly unique, even if there are obviously big threads between them. Yeah. That's interesting. I think I kind of want this to be similar to the first season of Andor, where it's a complete story that feels like a prologue to another story. And that other story is maybe something that you never need to see because it was a complete prologue. I don't know that these showrunners have the capability to pull off something like Andor season 2, but I would be interested in something similar, where they conclude this story with Fisk and Matt, and then we get, you know, ostensibly anthologies throughout Matt's career as Daredevil, dealing with different villains or different threats or different issues across a larger time scale. I think that would be interesting.
No. Interesting. We want the complete opposite thing then.
Yeah. Because I would love what you're describing. I just don't think that these guys have the juice for it.
Oh yeah, I kind of think that they're gonna lean more toward what you're describing. They're gonna bring in random fucking characters like Stiltman and adapt them, cleverly. Um,
Yeah.
and yeah, it's gonna be like more like 3 episode arcs like Muse, and I reckon that's the direction they're gonna go.
But it'll let you do cameos as well that aren't. You don't have to pay an actor for an entire season, but you could bring in Kate Bishop for 3 episodes. You could start to set the groundwork for that crossover. Yeah. But I mean, look, I would love what you're describing, Pat. I don't know. That seems like that is a tall order.
Yeah.
We can dream. Yeah. I don't know what I want from a finale, though. I definitely want to see the Punisher and Matt team up. I would love to see Daniel Blake get punched in the face. I don't really care who does it at this point, I've decided. I just want to see that guy get hit. Powell?
It's got to be BB.
Oh, God, it's going to
I
be
think if
BB.
anyone's going to punch him.
Yes, dude. Let's fucking go. I want BB to get the dirt that she needs to prove that Fisk killed Ben. I feel like that is really important, or that becomes her mission for the next season. I would love Karen to come back for a cameo. That would be interesting. Really complicate things. Maybe like at the end of it, Dex gets killed by somebody, and then she turns up to the funeral or something. Like you could kind of you could bookend your show with funerals in that way. Yeah, I don't know. I think there's some options there. Excellent. Well, we'll find out.
I would like other defenders to show back up.
Give me Jessica Jones, dude. What are we doing?
Yeah.
Where's my boy Luke at? We don't need Danny. It's fine. It's cool.
Poor Danny.
Poor Danny.
He tried his best.
He really did. Could you imagine Claire just showing up in this finale? That would be so fucking wild.
Ooh. Yeah, that'd be out of place.
Yeah.
I don't want.
Yeah. Yo, bring Colleen back. She was the OG. She was like...
You and your weird obsession with Colleen.
She's just so much more interesting than Danny. She's such a better character. It is infuriating. Drove me crazy during that Defenders coverage. And I was vindicated, by the way. I feel like Fozzie was on my side in the comments, so I feel like there was some vindication there at least. All right, that'll do it for us. I was going to ask Darth if he has anything coming up, but the answer is no. Patrick, if people want to find you on the internet and they want to hear your thoughts on storytelling, philosophy.
I love how you believe in me.
Oh, that's funny. Patrick, where can people find you?
People can find us on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and SoundCloud. A Method to the Madness is what our podcast is called. We have a website, amttm.com. Find all our socials and episodes from there.
Excellent. Love it. Go do that. If you listen to this, you will love that. Next week, we are talking about Daredevil Born Again, the finale, episode 9. Woo! We did it. Which will wrap up our Defenders coverage. If you want to support us, you can head to patreon.com/ZeroIndent or ZeroIndent.com is where you can find everything we do. The books and merch you can find at underink.press. And after our finale, we've announced it on the Patreon. We will announce at the end of next episode what our next unit for the show is going to be. Very excited to announce that. I've been sitting on this for like a year and a half when I came up for the idea. And yeah, there probably won't be a break on the feed necessarily between seasons, but we might do something in the middle with Sam and Danielle as a bit of a bonus Patreon. I haven't really thought about it yet. But yeah, that'll do it. If you listen to this and you enjoy it, we don't do any advertising outside of our network. We don't do anything to promote the show outside of posting shorts and TikTok and things like that. The best way you can help support us is to leave a comment, a rating, or a review, or send it to one person you think might like it. If you're like, man, there's that freaking nerd in my life who loves to listen to this type of thing, it really does help us out and helps us find new listeners. We appreciate the heck out of it. And as always, it was not entirely unpleasant to see you again. If you like these handcrafted studies of genre fiction, please head over to ZeroIndent.com or patreon.com/ZeroIndent if you'd like to consider supporting us. Even if you just give us a follow on Patreon, that helps us out. Leave a comment, a like, and if you're in a financial position to do so, you can support us and get access to early content, additional videos, director's commentaries, audio diaries, and all kinds of different things we have coming up. It really makes a difference helping keep independent media crit alive. Once again, that is zeroindent.com or patreon.com/zeroindent if you'd like to support us.